mystical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL Network.
Yes, so welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for another feedback show here to cover the recent episodes of Saturday Night Live, and that would be Ramy Youssef, Kristen Wiig, and Ryan Gosling, and preview what's to come, including Dua Lipa's episode this weekend, and then 2 more after that. My name is John from the SNN. So excited to be back with you. Took the week off last week, so I'm very excited. It's been a while since I podcasted, did some Passover stuff, took a little bit of an SNL break. It's very weird to do that, but I'm excited. I'm refreshed and recharged and excited to talk about this season. And of course, do that tonight on behalf of our presenting partner for this show, and that would be latenighter.com. And do that with the one, the only, Rich Tackenberg. Rich, how are you?
Oh my God, I feel like I'm in the inner circle. I finally made it to the feedback episode. I'm so excited. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you. So, I mean, Rich and I have been podcasting together since the very beginning of this thing, since season 46. And I don't know, Rich, if we've ever done a show just you and I before.
No, it's always been there's always been a third wheel. Although I always think I am the third wheel, but there's usually a couple of us. So I love this. This is great.
Yeah, you're one of our best color commentators on Saturday Night Live. So I'm excited to get your opinions tonight and answer some questions. We also have some patrons joining us throughout the show. So if you're watching the show tonight for the first time and you're wondering what the feedback show is, yes, we answer questions that could be about anything to do with this season or SNL in general. We always post a form within the day of the show on Twitter and in our Instagram stories. So make sure to get your questions in whenever we do that. We will have one more of these shows, and that will be for our postseason feedback show after season 49 is over. And we're also going to have a few different patrons join us throughout the night. They'll come on to talk about the season with us. And if you would like to do that yourself, you can become a patron at patreon.com/the SNL Network. We also have some other fun perks, including extra podcasts and stuff like that. All right, Rich. So 17 episodes into season 49. We're almost at the finish line. How are you feeling about the season right now?
I feel like it's just been really strong. I mean, I feel like we've been in a really nice period. Not every episode is always going to be fantastic, but you look at these last 3, and I just felt like, winner after winner, a lot of fun, a lot of inventiveness. We're seeing we're not seeing the shows being dominated by 1 or 2 cast members. We're seeing a really nice diversity of people, nice diversity of hosts, whether they're alumni, old favorites, new faces. I'm really bullish on it. I think it's been really great.
Yeah, the fun thing about getting to hear from you, once a month on the roundtables is that I think you're one of the biggest SNL fans that there is, except you're not online. Like, you're not in the, the deep into the community. So for you, like, you watch the show from 11:30 to 1. You do come on to talk about it with us, but you have a different perspective because you're literally like not influenced by anybody. And I love that.
Yeah, no, I love hearing what everyone else has to say too, because it is, obviously there's a lot of sketches where I'm not the demo, and I appreciate that. And I love what a big tent SNL has had to become over the years of, kind of big tent of comedy. And we get to play in those spaces. So a lot of times there's sketches where I'm like, oh, that was great. I didn't laugh once. It wasn't for me, but I love that they did that. It's been great. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, look, for me, I am really in, everything. Like, I try and just take it all in, and I love to hear what everybody has to say about it, good or bad. So for me, I found like general consensus, like, yes, there are people that like this season more than others. There's people that dislike the season more than others, but I felt like generally, I kept using the word inconsistent, especially when I would come on these feedback shows and feel like, we would go through a block where there'd be a good episode and a bad episode and a medium episode. And it's really hard to parse through how the season's going when you have blocks like that. But what I felt like we just got, and this is coming off of our last feedback show where we had just wrapped up the Josh Brolin episode, and I thought that episode was fantastic. Going into Ramy Youssef, which I thought was a fun episode, definitely written a little bit more in his voice, which was totally fine. Kristen Wiig, which was cameo packed and really felt like that party that you always talk about, Rich. And then this past week or a couple weeks ago with Ryan Gosling, where it was just like, breaking and returning characters. And it was just like, you almost like couldn't take your eyes off the screen, good or bad. And I feel like this was the strongest run out of any of the runs that we've had this season, this block of 3. So much so that I think that my perception of season 49 is a lot higher after what we just saw than what we had seen previously to that. Do you feel the same way?
Completely agree. I completely agree. I mean, I thought like the first 2 or 3 episodes of the season was a strong start, generally speaking.
Me too. A lot of people don't feel that way, but I feel that way too.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a nice strong start. You know, a lot of fun in there. And then, but I agree. I definitely think that these last 3 episodes were, you know, so much fun. You know, and not all of them I thought were as funny as maybe you did, but I think a lot of fun. Like we talked about, as you said, I think that the Kristen Wiig episode felt like the party that I always want to be invited to that's happening live. And then the Ryan Gosling episode felt like the after party to the party that I got invited to. And it had that late night, really broken up, really loosey-goosey, we're just being silly vibe to it, which was like such a nice compliment to the Kristen Wiig episode.
I don't think you were on for the Ryan Gosling week, so I'm curious from you, what did you think about the whole Beavis and Butthead thing? Because that sketch like broke through our bubble and just was everywhere. And it's very rare. Like I think you can count like a handful of times in the last 10 years when something like that has happened. I think Lisa from Temecula got close.
Yeah.
Definitely David S. Pumpkins, you know, broke through. But, you know, in modern times, it's very rare when SNL has a sketch that just like everybody is talking about, even if they don't watch the show. So how do you feel about that when you saw that happen?
I'm not surprised it broke through at all. I thought it was really funny. I mean, I thought, as we've discussed a lot here, to me, there's a certain joy when the cast members can't hold it together and they're laughing, if and only if what they're laughing at is, to me as the audience, so funny that I also would not be able to hold it together if I were them. So as opposed to some other sketches in Ryan Gosling, which I think actually get hurt by them breaking because it's like, it's not that funny. This was such a great moment. And you're right. It's Lisa from Temecula. It's Debbie Downer. David Pumpkins is a little different because it didn't have that break, but you're right, it had that buzziness to it. So I thought this was such a fun. I thought it was really fun, and also the silliness of like Beavis and Butthead is not like a current thing. I mean, I know they came back again, but like it's another one of these old. You know, it's not. It's like almost Air Bud era, and yet it had this. There was something just so visual, and that's the other thing I was going to say about the sketch is that a lot of times, like, you know, comedy is written first and performed second, and so many of our favorite sketches, really you could hear it and it's not that different than seeing it. This was such a great visual that I think that's also why it really popped for me, is just seeing them in those characters was so funny. Just if the sound was down, I probably would have laughed half as hard. I still would have laughed half as hard as I did with the sound up, which made it so fun. So I thought it was great.
Yeah, I sometimes do the casual test where I will show a sketch to either my fiance who doesn't, you know, isn't as into the show nearly as much as me, or maybe some friends who used to watch the show but don't watch it anymore. And I just like watch and see, like, does this work for you? And it really did. Like something about that sketch just seemed to really work with everybody. So it's a really fascinating time to be an SNL fan. It's a very exciting time for something like this to happen when, you know, we're headed into this anniversary season. So there's so much to talk about in SNL land. I want to bring in our first patron of the night to give his opinion on the season so far. So let me bring in from across the pond, Lewis Cooper is here up late with us. Lewis, how are you?
Hello. I'm very good. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing great. Lewis, meet Rich. Rich, Lewis.
Hi.
Hello.
I've heard your voice, so
so
I
Lewis,
apologize.
part of
yeah,
part of it.
Lewis, it's so great to hear from you. It's been a while, so I would love to know. Maybe this is the first time we've talked, maybe since last summer. So would love to know.
I think so.
Yeah, how are you feeling about the season right now?
I'm enjoying it a lot. It's one that I'm finding very fun to like kind of be a part of the ride of seeing it all come out. I think inconsistent is a very good way to put it. There are a lot of highs. And I wouldn't say the lows are too low, but there's a lot of middling. I've found. I think these last 3 episodes has been my favorite run of 3 of the whole season, because it was so strong, and they, like kind of Rich was talking about, they each have individual strengths. I think really make it feel nice, and are three kind of like of the best parts of the show.
So I know you are a more recent fan, if I remember correctly. Over the last few years, you've
Yeah.
really gotten into the show a lot more. Compared to some of the other recent seasons you've seen, how are you feeling about this one versus them?
I think it's weird because we had 47 was kind of the first one I started getting really involved with, and that was like the end of a lot of cast members' tenures. Then 48 was, this very revamp, and I think I thought when we started at 48, I was like, okay, it'll be kind of bumpy for a while, but by next year they'll have it figured out. And I don't know if they have it fully figured out. I think they get kind of in strides of having an idea of how they want to do it. Like for a good chunk of time, it's a little bit, they were like, Marcelo, we want to push him. He's really strong. And that was what we saw a lot of the first half of the season, I felt. But it's kind of dwindled out a bit, which I like because it's given more people to shine. But I think the more people it's given to shine aren't the people who need it that much. Like we've seen a lot of Ego, Heidi, and Mikey, which I love. They are three phenomenal performers and writers, but there's still a good amount of cast members that aren't getting their place. And I think we maybe saw glimpses when they first joined, but they haven't got what I feel they deserve.
Yeah, that's interesting because, one of those people that we talked about a lot was Andrew. And I feel like part of the reason why the second half of the season has been so good has been his influence on the show has been finally felt throughout. Like, I feel like his voice is not just appearing once a night or once every 2 episodes.
Yeah.
They're making a conscious effort to make him a part of the show. And I'm not solely crediting him, but I do think that's a factor here. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that even you do feel like there's still some people who they need to push further even more.
Yeah. I do love Andrew's stuff. He makes me laugh.
I would also, to your point, Lois, I would also say this is the first, and there's no bad or this is the first time in a little bit that we haven't had a new featured player to the season break out in a way that they help define the season. So that's why I think it's a great season. We've had great adds to the group, but I don't know that, or I guess it was just, but it doesn't feel like in other seasons I have felt like, oh, you added, Michael Lawnford, Devin Walker, Marcelo, JAJ, Sarah. Like it felt like, oh my God, these new this year, Chloe, I think has been great, but I don't think that this season feels different because Chloe's here in a way that I have felt in previous seasons. Although I think she'll certainly get there.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point about Chloe, because I think I feel she has added stuff, but quite subtly, especially with her kind of like musical stuff. We're seeing those sketches, but part of me kind of goes, are we only seeing those types of sketches because of Chloe? And I go back and forth a bit in that, because you look at like the Little Orphan Cassidy, I think it was, for the Timothée Chalamet one, and that's a very funky sketch. And I wonder, for me, I keep comparing Trost to Cecily Strong because of the kind of musical influence they bring. And it's interesting because Cecily had a lot of bringing her own style of music and her own kind of voice of that to the show, and then also writers using that. And I feel like it feels like we've had a lot of writers using Chloe Trost's talents, but she's not been pushing through as much. And I don't know if that's because of like it's crowded or she's struggling to find it, but I think that is kind of interesting what you're saying.
I think what's interesting about the comparison between Cecily and Trost, Cecily, when she comes in, she has Adie Bryant and Vanessa Bayer to partner with on, Girlfriend's Talk Show and, ex-porn stars, where she could sort of like build her voice through other people as well. And I don't know that Trost has had an on-screen partner. It seems like what she does is, in isolation. She's in a silo, basically, where, don't get me wrong. I think that Get That Boy Back was a fantastic sketch that she just did in the Gosling episode. And it seems like PDD, being friends with her from before the show, would make a conscious effort to include her in material. But I do think that if you were to go and ask some of the performers who came in on their own to a season, I think it's probably hurts you more than it helps you. because you just don't have like, it's like being the new kid in school, right? Like you're just like, you're trying to join this group and trying to find your place. And there's there's a little bit of a dissonance there where you're trying to connect.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what future kind of partnerships and groupings form, especially for someone like Glib, because JJ and Dismukes have this really strong thing that I feel we didn't really have it on season 48. Like after Kate and Eddie left, and they're kind of filling that gap. I don't think to the extent that Kate and Eddie had, but they each have their own kind of unique voices, and I think when they come together, it's not just Dismukes or just JAJ when they're doing something together. It is a new kind of voice, and I think that's a really beautiful and genius thing that SNL allows. And I think it'll be interesting to see what we see more of like that in the future of new pairings.
Yeah, I think what's interesting for Trost is like clearly she had a great start to the season. Definitely halted momentum after what happened with that Adam Driver cold open. And then we got her back in Sydney Sweeney's episode with the Airbnb pre-tape. And now again, she had a spot. So I'm thinking maybe one more Trost piece before the end of the season, and we could walk away all feeling like, okay, that was a solid rookie season for somebody who we may see a lot more on the show. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
I would hope that in the last 3 episodes, we see her in a Weekend Update feature. I'd love to see her as a standalone character in Update, because I think that's often, whether it's doing stand-up or doing a character, that's often where featured players kind of make their mark and kind of like, oh, here I am. So I hope she gets that chance.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Rich, Lewis, why don't we get into some of the questions that we got this week on our feedback form? We have a lot to get to. So I'm going to start with this question we got on Instagram from @randomtrekreview, who said, did the Kristen Wiig and Ryan Gosling episodes prove that recurring characters are better than recurring sketch concepts? So this is an interesting question, I thought, to start with, because, we said that we're in the era of more recurring sketch concepts than recurring characters. I don't know as much about, season 48 and 49, but at least that's the way I felt during the mid 40s, where they would have an idea or a template for a sketch and sort of, redo that template over again. Now, in the Kristen Wiig episode, obviously we got, Aunt Linda back. We got, that retirement party sketch where we saw, the Gail, the woman with the air canister, and Will Forte's Hamilton. Ryan Gosling's episode, we did get a recurring sketch concept with Beavis and Butthead, but we also had, the Cut for Time Papyrus sketch with a returning character. So it's interesting to talk about one versus another and which is better. Rich, how do you feel about it?
It so depends. It's such a great question. It so depends on execution for me. I mean, to me, watching, and I will be, heretic, whatever the right term is, to see Ryan Gosling and Kate McKinnon do the Alien sketch, fine. To me, you should have just done the actual original sketch again with the original script. It would have been funnier. And I don't think we're buying anything from the new dialogue that they did for this one. So to me, yeah, to see, oh, remember that sketch you loved? Well, we're just redoing it with slightly new words. It just has to elevate on such a level that I think it's hard. And I will say, with the difference being Weekend Update features, a character coming back to Weekend Update to me is totally different.
Well, what about like Wayne's World though? Like, isn't that like something that Mike and Dana would just like kick off the show and like do a top 10 list and talk about what was happening in the world? Like, it's not like so, like at a certain point, like how different do you have to get when something is working?
Oh, to me, it's totally different. To me, Wayne's World, for the most, not every Wayne's World was great, but generally it lived or died by the writing of the episode. And there was so many fun, like when Wayne's World started, I couldn't write the sketch save for a couple of punchlines in my head. When I see the Alien sketch, I can write the sketch save for some specific punchlines in my head. So to me, it's totally different. So, but you're right, it's about the execution. If, the problem with the reoccurring concepts is when we lose the surprise. There's just no surprise to the sketch. I know all the beats. I've seen it. We're going to do it again. So that to me, then it can still be quite fun, but it's rarely going to make me laugh in the way that I want it to laugh, unless the writing rises to the level, and then it's a home run. So I think that's the same true of reoccurring characters when we're not putting them in new situations. Now, if you're reprising characters that we haven't seen since 2009, have at it. That's totally different. But I think for me, I like when we're not just like, oh, Emma Stone hosted, so we're going to do the poster sketch again. Okay, but we didn't evolve it in such a way that it brought surprise to those of us who remember the original poster sketch. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think like some good examples of characters that they took and placed in different situations, but obviously they did this way more back in the day, but like Rob Schneider as the Richmeister, they at least like, elevated or escalated that into different things. It's Pat sort of with Julia Sweeney, like those type, that era, maybe a little bit more. Kristen Wiig's Penelope is a good example of something they tried to put in different situations. Lewis, how do you feel about recurring characters versus recurring sketch concepts, and which one works for you better?
For me, I find it difficult to have an objective preference, because I think what we saw with the Beavis and Butthead one, that's in very loose terms a reoccurring sketch concept of the Bart Simpson one. But a lot of people who saw, I think in the modern era, especially with virality, we saw Lisa from Temecula get very big, but the other times they did it did not go as viral. You look at Beavis and Butthead, the Bart Simpson one, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it went that viral, but the Beavis and Butthead, you put that on TikTok, it does numbers. Which with a character, you can only get that one time, I feel. Again, that's more of a modern era thing, I feel, with just TikTok and digital space and stuff. But I think that sketch concepts, they're more so kind of going off of the idea. Like the Bart Simpson one and Beavis and Butthead are in concept very similar and also complete opposites. The joke in Bart Simpson is that he's like annoyed that he looks like Bart Simpson. Beavis and Butthead, they're not aware of it, but they still function very similarly, and you understand how A leads to B, but you get something new out of it, rather than it's less dependent on just the individual writing. Kind of going to what Rich was saying, it is a lot more in the idea, whereas with the character, it kind of comes down to the original writing a lot, and there's not much new you can do with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like this question often comes down to, who is driving the sketch? Is it the writer or the performer? Because the writer will always find it easier to go back to a template that worked before. That makes their job super easy, right? Like this,
Right.
I really like this thing that I created. It worked. Let me try it again. So they're just going to repeat the sketch concept. But the performer generally doesn't like doing the same thing over again. They enjoy more keeping it fresh and doing things. So sometimes that could be a little bit of a debate between a group, an alliance of a writer and performer of like, oh, I don't really want to play the same character again. But the writer's like, no, it worked and you have to do it. So I always find like through SNL history, it's interesting to follow these things. To answer your question to the person who asked this random Trek review, did Kristen Wiig and Ryan Gosling's episodes prove that recurring characters are better than recurring sketch concepts? I think it's hard to say. I don't think that these two episodes necessarily move the needle one way or another. I just know myself, I much prefer recurring characters over recurring sketch concepts. I'd rather completely rip up the sketch concept and take the recurring character and put them in a different sketch, have recurring characters from different sketches meet up in another world. Like that to me is the stuff that I always enjoyed from the show.
Yeah, going back to, sketch writing 101, I am not an expert, but I'm enough to, once you've established something funny, then, one of the basic tenets is if this funny thing is true, what else is true? And that's the idea. I think when you take a character that worked in one and place them in a new situation and see what else is true, it's funny. When we're just doing, oh my God, it was so funny watching Lisa Temecula cut meat at a table, and it was one of the funniest things I ever saw. To simply do it again does not answer that question as if this funny thing is true, what else is true? So to me, it's diminishing returns of comedy, not because everyone in it is great. If I had never seen the first sketch, I probably would have thought that was funny, but it just doesn't deliver in the same way.
Lewis, any other thoughts on the season that you want to share with us?
Oh gosh, I do like this mix and JJ's voice. let them have fun. I think my favorite moment from the season might just be when Ryan Gosling in the ridiculous Beavis makeup is looking around when they're going. There's someone that looks like Beavis and Butthead. I think to me that is peak SNL. I think, yeah, more recurring sketch concepts. I think I prefer. I like them. Let the hosts have fun, I say.
I agree with you, by the way. I do think that the funniest part of the Beavis and Butthead sketch for me was them not knowing why they were being made fun of. And
Yeah.
them playing into that, I think, was the best part of the whole thing. So,
Yeah.
totally agree. Lewis, thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying up late. I hope you'll come back soon. And don't be a stranger.
Hopefully my schedule allows it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to see you on one of our summer programs when we get that going. So great to catch up with you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lewis. All right, Rich, let's bring in our next patron who's going to be joining us now, and it is our good friend Fred is here. Fred, how are you?
Hello. Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Rich, nice to finally meet you. I feel like you're the godfather of this podcast, and John is like the Michael Corleone. So this is very exciting.
I'm going to take that as a flattery. I'll take it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Always good to hear from you. How are you feeling about SNL now that we had these past 3 episodes?
I'm loving this last stretch. I think like starting with like basically like after Lordy, like who was the host? I forget now.
It went
Dakota
Lordy,
Johnson.
Dakota. And
after Dakota, like from IO through now, like I think it's been like either very fun or very clever writing. And I think if they can like ride this out, then it'll be like a very impressive season. Like maybe since, looking back now, like 47 or something. I do kind of view it so far is it going to be viewed as this like transition era, kind of like maybe like after like Kristen, Sudeikis, and everyone left, like maybe that era, like in hindsight, I look at that era fondly, but then like I kind of struggle to define it. So I do wonder like if this will kind of fall into that era, but there's no problem with that. Like I think that it's been like a really good stretch.
It possibly will be seen in the long run, like 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road, looking back. This could be a transition era where they were still trying to figure out what their next great cast was. I think that this, with a 2-season sample size, because I really feel like 47 was like the last chapter of that era.
Yeah.
I think with this 2-season sample size, so far what I've seen is that this era of the show can have really high highs and really low lows. And it's not like we haven't had a season 48 or 49 where it's like consistently great throughout with maybe like 3 or 4 mediocre to bad episodes, or a really bad season with only a few good episodes. This is because the second half has been so good. I see that they can sustain this level of momentum, but it has tapered off and really just has its peaks and valleys throughout these last couple years. That I do wonder if next season will again be one of those seasons where it's like, okay, we got a really good stretch and then a okay stretch, or it's going to be one where they could finally take off.
Yeah. Rich.
All right. Well,
go ahead. Oh, I just had one quick comment. Like I do also and I hesitate to say this, like, is it host driven? So I'm like just curious also like who they book throughout the rest of the season. Like, and is that a part of this as well? Like this strong momentum?
Rich, why don't you take
it? Fred, you almost exactly dovetailed what I was going to say to John about this season, which is I think we have an incredibly strong, solid cast with fewer breakout stars than we've had in the past, but we have almost no one that is, and I would never say any cast member has ever been dead weight, but someone that I go, what are they doing on the show again? Why are they here? Like everyone has a place. But I think because we don't have that big breakout star having a breakout star moment, then we are more host dependent. Because if a host cannot elevate sketches, then one of the main characters in every single sketch is going to pull the sketch down. If we're at Will Ferrell in his heyday, Adam Sandler in his heyday, even during the time Kate McKinnon was having that absolute moment, you could have big sketches that even if the guest star was not holding their own, you could drive through with those big SNL cast members doing big characters, getting big laughs, even if the overall episode was uneven. I do think that you're right, because this season it's so solid, but there's no big breakout stars, breakout characters beyond maybe the Donald Trump impression. We are more reliant on that person who's going to be in every single sketch has to hold their own or rise to the level in order for us to have a great episode. I know I'm overgeneralizing, but that's my opinion.
Here, you guys want to see something interesting? So I was having this conversation with a couple of the people who help work on the podcast, Alice and Matt. And I was going through like all of the writing credits from this year. So basically the way it works at the show behind the scenes is like you'll have a couple writers who will write a sketch and then they'll write it in a cast member's voice or in maybe two cast members' voices. And they'll often get like, it'll be credited to the writer, but with, the cast member. And I went through and I was like wondering, how many spots have been given to each cast member this year to get their vehicles on the show? So I took a look through 17 episodes. I know this isn't by the numbers, but I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at this here,
please.
Which I pulled it up on screen if you're watching us on YouTube, which is, who's really driving the show this season. And I counted them up and just summed it. And Mikey Day and Bowen Yang both have 20 pieces that they've gotten on the show this season in 17 episodes. Then for the audio listeners, I'll read it. Dismukes at 13, Marcelo 12, Chloe Feynman 11, Sarah at 10, Heidi at 8, Ego 7, 5 for JJ and Devin, 4 for Longfellow, 3 for Punky Keenan and Trost, and then 0 for Molly this season so far. But, we're talking about, is a star driving the season, Rich, you mentioned. I think that, from these numbers, at least, it seems like they're giving the biggest chance to Bowen and Mikey to drive the season.
That feels right. That feels right to me. I mean, Mikey, I love Mikey so much. I would say in so many sketches that he's driving, he's often the straight person in the sketch, not the crazy person. And so, his on-screen role is a little bit different than what we might be seeing in the way that he's driving it. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Anything here you take away, Fred?
Yeah, just like I want to clarify, I guess. Like, is this like so-and-so, like Rich and Fred wrote a sketch, but like we're keeping like a cast member's voice in mind? And then we're plugging in a host of some sort, or like kind of fitting them in. Okay.
Like throughout the season, basically, like let's say it's a Mikey Day and Streeter Seidel sketch. Generally, like Mikey wouldn't write a sketch that he wouldn't be at least like a major part of. Okay. So in that case, we got 20 Mikey Day sketches. We have 20 Bowen Yang pieces on the show this season, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, then this totally makes sense. Yeah, I think these people are all standing out big time.
Yeah, well, that's why I think that if there's anybody who's sort of driving the ship, I think it's Bowen that they're pushing as the star of the show in season 49. And I do think he's had some really, really strong moments this season. But to my point about Andrew, 13 and being third on the cast, like if you would have told me 17 episodes into the season, Mikey and Bowen, who and Andrew were, the leaders, like those three together, I would have been, pretty surprised that Andrew was a part of that group. Saying that, they were all three former writers on the show before they were cast members. So I think that they know the game a little bit better than their contemporaries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Fred, are you good to take some more questions from our listeners?
Yes, let's go for it.
All right, this one comes in from our friend Ken George Jones in the chat. He said, so far this season has had 4 much anticipated returning hosts: Chalamet, Stone, Driver, and Gosling. How would you rank their episodes from favorite to least favorite? His would be Driver, Chalamet, Stone, and then Gosling last. So do you have a favorite or order between those 4? Timothy Chalamet, Emma Stone, Adam Driver, Ryan Gosling.
Interesting. I'd almost go... I'd start backwards. I really like the Gosling episode a lot. And then Timothy, Emma, and Driver. The Driver one's escaping me, which is a bad sign a little bit. But I'd say after that, like the Timothy Chalamet episode, Emma Stone, and then Adam Driver which is surprising. I might switch Emma with Adam. I'm just blanking right now on some Adam Driver sketches, but yeah.
Interesting. Rich, what do you think?
You're right. My memory is for crap, but I'm gonna say I think I like the Adam Driver the most. I remember really liking Adam Driver. I'm gonna go Gosling second, Chalamet third, and for me, Emma Stone would definitely be fourth of those four.
Yeah, I think for me, Ryan Gosling was my favorite episode of those four. I think that probably I'd go Adam Driver second, Emma Stone third, and Timothy Chalamet fourth. I would say that out of those four, I had mild disappointment for the other three that weren't Ryan Gosling. Like, just the level is really high. Now, I don't know. I mean, Timothy Chalamet had only hosted once prior, but people were excited to see him. I just didn't feel like they really brought it for that episode. But yeah, personally, the Ryan Gosling episode spoke to me more. Adam Driver is probably, if I had to pick out of those hosts, Adam Driver and Emma Stone are clearly stronger hosts than Ryan Gosling. I just don't know that their episodes stacked up to their resume necessarily. That's an interesting one.
But no, I take it now. Now I can finally, it's like coming back to me. Like Adam Driver, yeah, the beep beep, like the baby on the plane. No, that was a fun one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Paige Goldstein asked, which sketch of Ryan's episode was your favorite? Hers would be the butthead one. I think generally that was what people felt. I like the engagement sketch. I felt like that was one that nobody talked about because there was so much talk about Get That Boy Back.
I love the engagement sketch. I thought that was very funny. But I mean, Beavis and Butthead for me, for sure, because it was a once in a lifetime moment. I will say about the Beavis and Butthead, I do wonder, would it have been so popular had no one in the cast laughed? Had they just played it straight the way you
Definitely
normally
not.
do and no one laughed, I don't think it would have been as popular. So the engagement sketch just really just killed. I thought that was so funny, but they're both great.
I also don't think that sketch works if it's not Heidi who's laughing. Like, I think you
True.
could place another cast member in that role. It doesn't work as well. I know that the general audience doesn't know Heidi Gardner like we do, but I think that knowing that Heidi never breaks, I think really makes a difference there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the fact that she doesn't break really sold that she really did not mean to break. And I think even if somebody doesn't know Heidi that well, like they can sense that sincerity in her breaking. Because I'm sure she would much rather not break, whereas I think some people kind of let themselves go once it starts. But I agree, like the engagement sketch is also my favorite. Like I typically like a sketch that's like a little slower, like kind of like there's characters interacting and like a bit of like a nuance to like what they're saying, like certain like inflections and like kind of like there are like lines delivered there that like if Dismukes and Gosling weren't good actors could have been like pretty tough to deliver, I think. And I appreciated that.
Fred, anything else on this season that you've had some stray thoughts on, or anything you're looking forward to in these last three?
I had one stray thought that I don't know if this is the forum for, but I just couldn't relate. And I feel like I'm the only person to the Ramy Youssef sketch with the immigrant parents. And like the idea of like, so like my father is Middle Eastern and like he like is obsessed with my sisters, but he also is like, or maybe I'm just very lucky that like my father's a great guy. Like he's not like that hard on me. And I just like couldn't like grasp like that, like, is this a thing? And like it really took me out of the sketch. And like I guess everyone just like took it to be. But did anyone else get confused kind of wrapping their heads around that? Because like I feel like usually like the stereotype is that like the son is kind of like admired or like favored. Despite like my sisters are spoiled in their own way, but like I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy like on that.
I can't speak to that for myself personally, but I could say that I did enjoy, almost like seeing it from another voice. I think was what made me like, I think the sketch was actually a really strong sketch, and it was a voice or POV that we don't normally get on the show. So, even if it may have, not aligned it with exactly like your personal perspective, I think it was interesting to get that perspective. At least that's the way I felt about it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I I really like the sketch, not for what I thought was its accuracy. I think that especially on the show, we have played the idea of the Hispanic mother loving the son. So to see, Marcelo playing the Hispanic father and his son's a bum, that to me was a fun. I liked it in this specific, although I didn't necessarily think that was a generality. So I agree with what you're saying.
That's my stray thought, truly a stray thought. So
yeah, for sure. Anything you're looking forward to coming up on the show?
I'm just like, I'd love to know like who are like the last two people being booked. And yeah, like I'm curious to see how Dua Lipa will do. I'm sure she'll do great. Pretty excited.
I'm sure we'll find out this week at some point, and hopefully if I could drop some Easter eggs, I will at some point. So listen carefully. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Fred, for joining us tonight. Always great to speak to you. Can't wait to do it again sometime soon.
Thanks so much. Thank you both.
Bye-bye.
All right, Rich, let's bring in our good friend Ian onto the show to have some conversation with us. So, Ian, how are you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
What's up?
All right. Nothing much. Just hanging out, having a twisted rockin' time or whatever Ramy said.
Yeah, absolutely. So, by the way, I love your shirt. You're wearing a Blink 182 shirt. Great one there.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so what's up with you? How are you feeling about SNL right now?
I enjoy it. I'm excited for as we get closer to 50. I mean, there was a couple episodes this season that didn't really make me laugh too much, but most of them did. So I'm excited to see what else we got. I'm excited for Dua Lipa. But yeah, it's been good. I enjoy it. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but
no, I mean it's great to hear. Did your mind change on the season at all after watching these last few episodes?
In a good way. Like I was like more excited. Just like I don't know, all the star-studded Kristen Wiig episode made me excited how many people will get for the 50th because Lauren can just get like anybody he wants at like a press of a button. It seems at least.
Yep.
So
Rich, I don't know if I've asked you, do you think that we're going to get like every episode like the Kristen episode next year? Like what would you like if you put on your producer hat, how do you think it's going to go?
I'm going to watch what I say. I think it's going to be a very normal season with an amazing special. And they will be like the 40th. The 40th season was not necessarily a breakout season plus or minus, but it had an amazing special in the middle of it. I think we're going to see the same thing.
So all of our dreams of what we could potentially see next year with all these like Jane Curtin and Lorraine Newman hosting, it's you think rip it up and throw it away.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if the actual season was anything but a normal season.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess we'll see. I mean, it's getting close.
Yes, amazing.
All right, Ian, do you want to answer some more questions from the listeners?
yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's take this question from our friend Monette. Monette asks, should pre-taped song sketches moving forward for SNL focus more on the premise or on just making a good song that happens to be funny? So we talked about this a little bit when it came to Get That Boy Back, which was a great song, and it also happened to be funny too. But what's the best way to do this? Because we've seen since basically The Lonely Island, many attempts at trying to make this work, Ian.
I think making a good song just happens to be funny is harder and more fun, in my opinion. You know, just kind of making something a song for the sake of it being a song. I personally am not a fan of that. Whether even if it's funny, I mean, it's like, okay. But yeah, I think it should be that personally. I don't know. Just because like, especially when they end up on Spotify, then you can jam out to them. But no, I rewatched the Get My Boy Back, and it is so good, and it's just so the melodies are always on point, and the lyrics are just hilarious. So
yeah, it's interesting because like I feel that the Big Boys and Get That Boy Back really worked because they were also really catchy too. And we're not in the age anymore where, SNL creates a catchy song, everyone's going to download it and put it on their iTunes or something like that. But I still think there's merit in creating a song that people can listen to and not necessarily know that it is from SNL. What do you think of that, Rich?
Yeah, I totally agree with both you guys are saying. I mean, at the end of the day, there's different forms of comedy, and if I look at a song parody and go, or not a song parody, a song on SNL, if I start to think, you know what, this would have been just as funny as a sketch with basically the same beats, then it's a miss for me. It really is only memorable if it's a song that is just like, oh, it had to be a song. If it wasn't that song, it doesn't play the same way, and and that's what makes it memorable. So I agree. I will say that also though, I mean, part of a funny song is the premise. It's a little bit hard to divorce yourself from. We've had songs that were like, yeah, they were good songs, but if the premise is something that we don't identify with, if the premise is sort of like a conceit that we're like, wait, what is that? Wait, what are they going for? Then to me, you're also going to lose somebody no matter how good the song is, which is what makes them great payoff. If you hit both, then it's memorable and it also becomes timeless. We're going to remember Dick in a Box and we're going to remember, Lazy Sunday way more than I can remember the sketches that appeared on the same night of those two episodes. But also you kind of have to hit both for it to work for it at all. I think it's harder for either one to work and the other not, and it be a great song that we're going to remember.
I wonder if SNL will ever get to the point where they create something that will be like so viral in terms of a song, or maybe it's just we're not in that world anymore. But for me, like, when like I Just Had Sex came out, that was like we were like playing that in the car, like going out at night, like that was.
I'm on a boat too.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like these were all bangers that, like, no pun intended, that we had to like, just use as like, fun party songs. And I think like, I wonder, I would be curious if like any of our listeners in the last like few weeks have been like, going out and they're playing like Get That Boy Back if they like country music and they're like, oh, I want to listen to this or something like that. Cause I guess, yeah, there maybe the Lonely Island's like demo, like it spoke to me more, but there must be like people out there who some of the good music that's been created in the last 10 years has spoken to them a little bit more, or maybe just that doesn't exist anymore.
Go ahead, Ian.
I was just gonna say, I mean, one of the more recent ones was Big Boy with SZA. Like that one is one of the like best in the recent years, in my opinion. But I don't think they've ever released that on streaming. I don't know if it's a rights thing, but
yeah, I think that is. I think that's so. Some of the problem there is like when the Lonely Island created the model of like Dick in a Box, they were like able to share some like revenue rights going on with the artists that would then like be on it. So like T-Pain's I'm on a boat, like he will get a little something for that going viral. Like I don't know what SZA and SNL like put together with Punky Johnson and Vanessa Jackson for Big Boys, but whatever didn't materialize, I think was a huge shame because that like one felt like it had potential.
Yeah.
Rich, what were you going to say before?
It's just thinking about like, as an example, Get That Boy Back, which was such a fun music video. I do think the challenge, because of the complicated nature of the build of the joke, if I heard it without video, I don't know that the song, that there's a lot of premise in there that I don't know that would be as much fun to hear it multiple times. Now that's not what they're going for, so I don't hold that against them because it worked exactly as it was supposed to work. I think some of the Lonely Island songs, as an example, were like, you could, having seen them once, you could just then hear the audio and there wouldn't be a moment where you're kind of like waiting to get back to the song in the same way. I think the musicality of it played straighter. So it was also a different time.
Yeah. By the way, if any of our listeners have not checked out Seth Meyers and Lonely Island's new podcast, so good. Yeah. Just like everything I would want from an SNL podcast. So you got to go check that out. All right, let's take this next question, which came in from Ike Moore, who was on the chat as well. As we finish up 49 and go into 50, do you think that the show will create sketches exclusively for social media platforms? I can totally see the 10-to-1 sketches and the more risque or weird sketches go straight to YouTube and have the envelope pushed even more with the writing. So this was part of our discussion that we were having with Papyrus 2 going online. Will SNL start to create content specifically for an online audience? Ian, what are your thoughts on that?
I thought that was kind of their test run to see how people reacted to that, to see if it did draw any engagement. And I'm not sure if it worked for them, but it worked for me. I was excited for it. I went way too early. I was like, oh, let's go. And it wasn't there when I wanted it to be, but it was nice to watch. But yeah, I think that, I mean, that's a smart direction to go to anyways. I mean, the direction we're going as far as the way people are consuming media, I feel, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So,
I just wonder how you fit that into the process. Like, I think what Ike is asking here is like, on writing night, is like this sketch put in a different pile of like something that is built for an online audience because they don't want to put this on, network airwaves, like back in the day, like the nude beach sketch where they said like penis 48 times, like if this was then, like, would they be doing that just to like post it online? Like, those, like, I'm so fascinated with how this works. And we talked it through a lot during the Gosling week of what the future of the show might look like. Rich, I know you're very interested in this topic as well, of like the future of media and stuff like that. So what's your opinion on all this?
Yeah, my opinion is no. I don't think so. I don't think there's, as you said, the incentive model. I think that will change the day that a cut for time sketch goes completely viral and outperforms and is more talked about than any sketch from the live show that night that's also on YouTube. And I don't think that I don't think it's built to happen. I don't think there's enough exposure to to those videos. So I don't think so. I will also say I don't think as long as Lorne is the executive producer that will ever happen. There's just not the if you're writing for the show, the juice is being on the show. And I think to write something that was going to be digital only from the jump, it would be harder to incentivize people to do that. Now, maybe there's a world where if someone gets shut out after Wednesday night and they say, hey, if you want to do something on your own and, with a skeleton crew and film it for the online audience, but it just feels like that would be such a demotion. I don't see it happening. But if something takes off and catches fire organically, then I could see things changing. But right now, I don't think so.
Yeah, it would be interesting how they would label that. Like, would it be cut for time? Because that's how they've always done it. Or is it like a digital exclusive? Like, how do they work that? Because it's always been seen as a negative thing to have your stuff be put online, not positive. And now, if they want to, be with it, it's like you have to do stuff online. So it's very interesting.
The way I don't think they would ever do this, but I think the way to do it is not during the season, but let's say hypothetically going into the summer, do a deal with, let's say, Please Don't Destroy. Do 5 online, Peacock and YouTube only videos, one every week for the summer or something to kind of keep the momentum going. And if one of those catches, I could see that being interesting. That said, I don't see them doing that right now.
Yeah, fair enough. Ian, any other thoughts you have on season 49 or anything coming up in May?
No, I just I'm excited to see who we get. I have like many people I'd like to see, but they're like probably unlikely as far as timing.
Name me a couple of them.
I just the talks of the Lily Gladstone, I think, would be interesting because I know I've seen her name a lot, and it'd be, I think, I'm not sure the history of, like, she's like a Native American, correct? Is that what it is? I don't know how many like full like Native American hosts they've had in the history of SNL, if any.
I would say not many.
So, that'd be a fun for the numbers and just for history in general. But yeah, I thought Donald Glover would be cool to come back because he had a couple things he was working on with that new Mr. and Mrs. Smith remake. But I just don't think they're like, I don't think it would make sense for the end of the season.
All right. Well, we shall find out very, very soon. So excited to talk through that once that is out. Okay, Ian, thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. And looking forward to catching up with you next time as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Cool.
Of course, Ian. All right, Rich, ready to keep going?
Let's do it.
All right, let's bring in our good friend Demi is here. Demi, how are you?
Great. How are you, John?
I'm doing well, thank you. Demi, meet Rich.
Hi, Rich.
Hello.
Rich. Hi. Were you in all that? Were you like a sketch performer like for kids shows or?
No.
Your face looks so familiar.
God, no. That I wish I could say. I would want to make a joke and pretend that I was, but no, unfortunately,
believe
Yeah,
you.
Rich, tell us
Yeah.
about all the behind the scenes working at all that and Nickelodeon.
I would believe all of it, and we would not talk about SNL at all. So thanks,
Yes.
John.
Demi, which shirt are you wearing? The SNL shirt you got on?
I got the season opener concert shirt with Miles Teller and Kendrick Lamar
Oh, very nice.
on the back.
Season
You
48.
can't
That's
see it.
yeah, no problem. That's a good one. So, how are you feeling about SNL now that we just had Ramy Youssef and Kristen Wiig and Ryan Gosling come in? We spoke to you, I think, a couple months back, and I'd love to know how you're feeling about the season right now.
Really great. Ryan Gosling was the first episode that I was genuinely excited about, because I don't get excited, or I don't. It's like it'll be what it'll be. Like, don't set yourself up. But I was like, oh my God, Ryan looks all body in, because he did that Chris Stapleton promo with the hat, and he delivered. I was just happy that everyone seemed to be gelling really well. And yes, Ryan did break a lot. I'm not even talking about Beavis and Butthead, but
Did that bother you?
no, because he's like really good looking and charming. So like, it's okay.
So a good-looking host can get away with breaking more than non-good-looking.
Well, he's a good actor. He's a really good actor. So what's not talked about in the Beavis and Butthead sketch as much is when Ryan had these really subtle acting cues. Where he was like, "Oh, can you move, sir?" And he's like, "What?" And he just paused, and then he got up. But he was like, that made it so real. And he was like, "I take this seriously. I'm going to play my role, and I'm not breaking." So it was, he was the guy in The Notebook. Like, I keep telling myself, that's the guy in The Notebook. It's the same guy. So that's really skilled, and I enjoyed it a lot. I thought he did a great job. But on Papyrus, don't mind me bring that up again. I was looking at the YouTube views, and
Okay.
Papyrus, because it did not have as many views when it came out the first, second day, third day. Obviously, Beavis and Butthead has 13 million. I think the Alien Encounters has 5.5, but Papyrus has 5.2, which is like the third most viewed video for that episode. And I was surprised to see that. So I'm not sure what the combination is, but
Well, actually, I got an email from NBC last week where they said sometimes I'll send out these emails to media where they will, I guess they're not like asking to promote their ratings, but they're just putting it out there in case you work for like a news outlet that posts these things. But they said on YouTube, 46 million people have viewed a portion of the episode, making it the most watched since 2020. So I guess that means that, like, you know, they added up the YouTube views at that point. I assume since 2020 means since the election of 2020, when SNL usually gets a lot of views. In all, there were 170 million social video views, including YouTube. So I think those extra 124 million views probably came from, you know, Instagram Reels or TikToks or whatever it is. But clearly this episode just like was viewed by so many people. And to your point, like Papyrus, very much a part of that. I don't think that, like, you know, 99% of the people who viewed the show online knew that Papyrus wasn't in the episode.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, because they were all mad. A lot of people were expecting it and then upset.
Yeah, well, we're mad because we watch the show, but you know, they don't, right? They watch it in little blocks, and they're like, just this is just part of their weekly content, and it's fascinating to me that is what is happening now.
Oh my God, you're right.
Although
So-
I will say the snarky thing, which is of those 5.2 million, how many got through to the end of Papyrus 2? Because that was a slog. Whew.
Yeah.
Bring it on, Demi. You agree? You disagree? Tell me.
How can you like halfway through be like, oh, I don't care what happens?
It felt like homework to me. It was.
Well, it's about fonts, so maybe that's why.
It was oof. It was rough. I thought it was rough.
Yeah,
I mean,
I thought it was fine. It just was. It was long. But it was supposed to be, you know, like a short movie or short film.
Yeah, I think what you said before, John, like you've said before, it was a really interesting like foray, because, you know, Seth Meyers does digital exclusives like Corrections is a beloved segment that is only on YouTube for YouTube viewers. But I don't know how that would translate as well to SNL.
Yeah, I will say major difference is the structure of a talk show is not built around the idea that like you have a week to prepare 90 minutes, minus commercials of material. And if your sketch doesn't get on or you get cut, it's because it wasn't good enough. So like the sport of Saturday Night Live has been there since 1975.
Yeah.
Whereas like Johnny Carson, like if he had to cut a guest because he didn't have time for him, like nobody cared. But, if your sketch got cut in 1978, like people still cared.
Yeah. Well, I don't think people will ever stop caring about that.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that people might stop caring about that because it might not matter anymore. It might be like, well, I don't care if my sketch got cut as long as it gets put up, as long as it goes online.
I guess the revenue stream would be unaffected. I guess the only thing that would be affected is clout. I don't know. Bona fides. I don't know. But it is a sport.
And it's also the hard part too is, the magic of SNL, whether you've been watching for 50 years or 2 years, is that it's Saturday Night Live. And so when you've got videos that were not live, it changes the DNA. It changes I don't know what the right word is. It doesn't have that, this was, even pre-tapes, weirdly enough, they weren't live. So they're not the same. Where if you were talking about Mad TV or Key and Peele, like it would be different because the shows were never live. So the difference of watching it on my television versus my computer, it's not the same kind of loss of magic, for a lack of a pretentious better word.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I used to not watch YouTube if I didn't catch it live because I was like, no, I don't want to spoil myself. Yeah. I was a stoic or a monk or something, and I lost out on like 2 years. But
all right, let's take some more questions because I want to get through, make sure we get everybody's in the show tonight. So this comes from another Culkin-related name who says, do you think that SNL will start earlier in the fall to make up for lost episodes from the strike and COVID? With the Summer Olympics in August, an election cycle, and it being the 50th, I could see them starting in early September or at least some weekend update specials to gain more exposure and publicity. So my perspective on this is that I don't think they're going to make up for the episodes that they lost due to the strike. I think that's sort of a wash at this point. They did 20 episodes and they're moving on to whatever happens next. It has been widely reported that the celebration of the 50th is going to begin as of the Olympics this summer. Yeah. So I would assume that we're going to get some SNL related content coming out this summer, whether it's, Colin Jost and Michael Che, recording stuff, from the Olympics or from the national conventions, whatever it is. Like, I think that this summer will kick off and there will be some extra content out there. I wouldn't expect like a weekend update Thursday, at least that hasn't been announced yet. I think if they're going to do that, Rich, it would probably be announced at like the NBC upfronts in May.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I don't think we have enough information to go on there. I would expect a 21 episode season for season 50 plus the, SNL 50 special in February. Plus the Radio City Music Hall, which I don't know if that is going to be televised or not. I assume it is, but I don't know in what capacity. But yeah, I think they're going to go all in on everything. I would expect online, on Peacock, on NBC, everything. They're going to be promoting old sketches. I would expect we would finally go back to re-airing vintage episodes of the show on NBC. Like, they're going to go all out to promo this thing next year.
Yeah.
So is Conan one of the last guests? Do you know? Is it Conan?
Is Conan one of the last hosts for the next couple of weeks? I have not heard that Conan is a host coming up. So
everyone wants that, and I love Conan probably more than anything ever. But I'm like, I don't know if that would happen. But they're like, it's going to happen. I'm like, I don't know. So I'm just.
I think if he wants to do it, he will. Yeah. But I don't believe he will be hosting in May, as far as I know.
It's a lot of work. And he has a lot of work to do himself. But
he's still recovering from the hot wings. So
I think we all are. To be frank.
Well, we do have Dua Lipa coming up this weekend. That we know for sure, which is a double duty host. So the second double duty host of the season. We had Bad Bunny earlier this season, all the way back in October. Now we get Dua Lipa returning to the show. So we have this question from Victor Higgins, who asked, who are your favorite double duty hosts of all time? So Rich, going back among the list, I could put up a list of double duty hosts just to make it easier for us as we're talking this through. But do you have any favorites on this list here of anybody who's hosted double duty?
I very much do. Yeah. Now I will say, for context, where I can't even find her on the list. My friend Taylor Swift. I was in the audience for the Taylor Swift show, so I saw that was one of the two shows I saw live. But that said, for me, by far, my favorite. Let's see what year it was.
Taylor Swift was season 35. That's November 2009. I got the mouse around that one here.
Got it. I thought that was I was whatever. What was just Bruno Mars was my favorite. I think that Bruno Mars episode was so funny and so good. I thought that one was great. That said, I mean, I thought that Billie Eilish was good. I think Harry Styles was pretty good, if I'm remembering correctly. Megan Thee Stallion was good. So I generally like double duty episodes. I think that while they're not always the funniest, there's such a fun energy to them that I really like them. But those are probably the ones that stick out for me.
Demi, any for you?
Chance the Rapper.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Chance the Rapper, Donald Glover. Forgive me, Barbie, Donald Glover, Meeting Room, Existential Crisis Barbie, which I maintain may have been the seed that germinated into the Barbie movie. And probably Lizzo and Miley Cyrus is a tie.
Yeah, interesting. I think out of the recent ones, actually, look, I think that Bad Bunny wasn't so bad. I think people gave him a hard time because they brought in Pedro Pascal, but I think he was fine.
Great. He was great.
Nick Jonas, I really liked his episode back in 46. I think he was a decent one.
Yeah.
Drake was very good. Ariana Grande obviously had a good one. Miley Cyrus, Justin Timberlake, and Taylor Swift, I think, were some of the better ones over the last little bit. And I'd say in modern times, I think Britney Spears was a great double duty host back in the day.
Yep.
And then going all the way back, Stevie Wonder in the Ebersol era that's a really fun episode if you go back and watch that one. Just great musical episode. Dolly Parton's another good one from season 14. So there's been some great ones over the years. Yeah.
Oh,
it is
wow.
It's very special, honestly. It's it is a very, very hard thing to do, to perform and run around all night. Usually when a host is doing their thing during the musical performances, they're catching their breath. So it's not easy. So I'm excited to see what Dua Lipa can do this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
It's
many
funny that
sketches?
I'm sorry.
No,
I was
go
going to say,
on.
it's funny that you mentioned Justin Timberlake. He's so good as a host that I forget that he's also a musician in the context of Saturday Night Live. Because to me, he's one of the great hosts of Saturday Night Live. I forget that he's a couple of times been double duty, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think he's 3 times on this list, back 2003, 2006, and then 2013. So yeah, just some crazy great names on this list. Demi, any other thoughts on the season or anything else coming up that you want to talk to us about?
Nope. I'm glad to be here for the conversation and the reviews. And yeah, I'm going to keep being in the chat and tuning in and watching you guys talk about this. It's great stuff.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you calling in. I'm looking forward to the next time. So can't wait, Demi.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Bye, Rich.
Thanks so much. All right, Rich, we got a few more questions to get to before we wrap up the show tonight. So let's power through them. This one came from we have a couple questions from our friend Fred, who was on the show earlier with us. How would you compare this season to 48 and 47? I think this recent momentum, this could possibly be his favorite in years. So just, you podcasted these last few seasons. Any different feelings about this one versus the last couple?
I mean, I think it's a really great season. I feel like, as you said, we had kind of a transition. Was it season 47? I'm trying to remember I'm confusing my years. 47 is when we wrapped up Kate McKinnon and that whole gang. So I'd say, to me, there was a little bit more energy around season 48, just because it felt like kind of this like new era for me a little bit more, as sort of like, out with, a transition. 49 feels very much like a continuation of 48. I don't say that as a negative. It just, the energy to that is a little bit different, but I feel like we've had a lot of fun episodes here. I would also say I'm surprised that we haven't seen Ego as much in this season as we have in past seasons. And it's interesting that it was interesting to see your power breakdown, because while we're seeing Bowen's name a lot, which is great because I love Bowen, I did feel like season 47, 48, he was on the rise of being like a real kind of breakout star. And I feel like this season he's established himself, like Mikey, as a solid elder statesperson of the show who can deliver in almost anything. But I don't feel like he's on track to be the next breakout SNL cast member like I thought he might.
Yeah, I think the show would like him to be. And I do think he's had some good, like out of those 20, I think there's a few there that are some good moments.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's had great
yeah.
moments for sure. Yeah. Yeah,
let's talk about Ego for a second. So she has 7 sketches or moments of the season that were really written around her. So these, because it's only 7, I'll be able to say what they are. So she had Jada Pinkett Smith back in the Bad Bunny episode on Weekend Update. She had the Thanksgiving week airport sketch, which was like sort of like that sketch where everybody, during the Momo episode, her and Bowen were hosting it. She had the tiny ass bag with her and Marcelo back in the Adam Driver episode. That was the last sketch of the night. The rich auntie with no kids, Kate McKinnon's episode. That to me was my favorite thing from her.
So good. It. Yeah.
Club Shay Shay, the Shannon Sharp sketch back in the Elordi episode. Then the Jamaican church sketch in Shane Gillis. And then, of course, the return of we had Lisa from Temecula. And we had Charlotte the Pregnant Stingray as well. So those were all of her sketches.
Yeah. To me, some great features in that mix. And then from a pure sketch perspective, nothing that you mentioned. A lot of good, but nothing that I feel like was breakout. Lisa from Temecula originally was lightning in a bottle, but we haven't captured that. So clearly she has it. There's no question that she doesn't have the star power other than Weekend Update sketches. I don't know that we found it yet this season.
Yeah, and interesting, like you could see visually here how much they're pushing Marcelo on the show as well for being like a featured player, but only the 4th name on this list. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, this next question, also from Fred, asked, unless they find somebody outstanding, do you think they're going to keep this cast as is heading into 50? So I guess he's really asking, do you think they're going to add any new cast members for next year? What do you think about that?
I think so. Yeah. I think the question is, would they replace anybody? I think that the cast, I'd be shocked if anyone chose to leave going into the 50th. That seems like that would be insane. Why not stay for season 50? And I think they're going to play it very safe. I will say just in a very general way, that I think that they will not lose anyone, if it might be controversial to lose that person. So I think they'll play it safe, but I could see, I think, the show must go on. And I think that they will, if they can find another 2 strong featured players, they'll bring them in and figure out what to do with the cast.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think they've added somebody between seasons every year in the last 10 years, at least.
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe season 37 was the last year that they didn't add somebody between seasons. I think they added Kate McKinnon at the end of that season. That's when they brought her in as Andy and Kristen were leaving. But I don't know. I actually would say, unless they did find somebody that's just like out of this world fantastic, I'm okay with them leaving things as is and just like, maybe somebody will drop off. I just don't know. Like, if you're not going to like completely shake it up, like, let's just give it like 1 more year to see what we get out of all these people. Cause I think, like I said, like they have been able to reach high highs. And I'm curious now that like they're giving chances to some newer cast members like Andrew, like Marcelo? Does somebody start to like elevate themselves into like, you know, #1 starring role status at the show? Or does it stay very ensemble? It'd be interesting.
Right. And I do think that because we are diehard fans of the show, that makes sense. But I think when you're programming the show to the mass audience, you always want to take a swing and maybe find the next true breakout star. I think that I don't think they'll play it safe. I think they'll take a swing at somebody.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting, and we will be there to cover it all. So obviously, very excited for what's going to come this weekend, where we'll be back to talk about Dua Lipa's return to the show. Dua Lipa, previously a musical guest a couple times on the show, so we will be there for the Hot Take Show, the Roundtable by the Numbers next week to talk through everything from Dua Lipa's episode, and then we have 2 more episodes this season. I would be very surprised if they weren't announced in the next couple of days. So I think people will be excited about the 2 hosts that are coming up. I'm looking forward to discussing all of that. And then we will have our postseason coverage. We'll do our postseason roundtable. We'll do our postseason by the Number show and our postseason feedback show, where we will talk about the entire season. We'll get together. Any Patreon who wants to come on can come on. That show will be like right at the end of May, beginning of June. So if you want to come on with us, we'd love to get to talk to you. Patreon.com/the SNL Network. We'll also have our exclusive sketch breakdowns for you every single week. And then we have a very exciting summer podcast series to announce that the patrons can jump on and co-host. And we also have something that we've been working on for the 50th anniversary of the show that I'm very excited to announce. So I'll do that during the finale Hot Take Show. I'll talk a little bit about what's coming out throughout the summer to promote the 50th coming up. So very exciting stuff, Rich.
Very excited. I can't wait. I can't believe there's only 3 more episodes. Where'd the freaking season go? This is insane. So good. So good.
Yeah. It's really great. Like I said, great time to be a fan of Saturday Night Live. Really thankful to everybody who joins us for these shows, who comes on the show, sends in questions, or even just joins us in the chat. Really appreciate all. Make sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, to see all the content we're going to be posting this week about Dua Lipa. You can subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, so you never miss any of the shows that we have going on over here. I do want to thank our presenting partner for this show, LateNighter.com, who has been great with all the articles they've been posting about Colin Jost doing the White House Correspondents' Dinner, plenty of other late night stuff. Did you get to catch any of Jost's set the last couple of days, Rich?
I've only seen a couple of clips. I want to try to see if I can watch the whole thing. I haven't had a chance, but the little I've seen made me laugh out loud.
He is really, really good. Almost like it was the first time that I was like, oh, maybe he will get a talk show after all is said and done. Like I always liked him. I think he's one of the best writers in SNL history. And I think he's a great Weekend Update guy, but like, did I see him like going into the Jimmy Seth like lineage of I wasn't sure, but I think he was really great in this. Trump obviously very upset about Jost, so. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So that was great. Yeah, make sure to watch that. All right. Well, on behalf of everybody who joined us tonight, Rich Tackenberg and myself, Jon Schneider from the SNN, thank you for joining us for our feedback show. We will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.